Hello, good morning, Year 7, and welcome to your first lesson on a new topic. What we're going to be looking at is one of the consequences of the Silk Road. Now, we discussed its many benefits, its impact on global trade, on the spread of ideas, technology, religions, and so forth. But the Silk Road had a very dark side too. Um, Many people referred to it at certain points in its history as a highway of death. And that is really in reference to some major events that took place between the year 1220 AD and around the years 1450. So that period is known as the Mongol period, and the Mongols burst out of, unsurprisingly, Mongolia, and then they embarked on a major campaign of conquest, a multi-generational campaign of conquest, started by their founder, Genghis Khan, and then continued by his son, some of the more famous ones like Kublai, who established himself as the emperor of the Eastern Mongol Empire, including all of China. But yes, in the 1300s, the Mongols, although they protected trade along the Silk Road, they used it to expand their empire, and they went further and further east until their empire was pretty much at the boundary of Europe. So that included they defeated major European armies in Poland and Hungary in the years, I think it was 1240s, 50s. But yes, in 1347, something major happened. What I want you to do as the starter activity is to look at this map and think about our topic for today, which is the spread of the Black Death. Now, you guys are fairly familiar with the Black Death. It's quite topical at the moment. It's come up quite a bit in the news in comparison to the things that we're undergoing. But why do you think it spread so quickly around the world in the 14th century? And I want you to refer to what you can see in the map. So give yourself about 2 minutes, pause the video, answer that question, and then resume when you're ready. Okay, so what you should have written, what you could have written rather, is that the Silk Road, these various connected routes between different cities and states, was really a highway for disease, right? And so if a disease started to develop in China, as it did in the 1300s, it would not take very long. In fact, it would take a number of weeks for it to reach the Middle East, and then from the Middle East, a number of days before it reached Europe. And that's exactly what happened in 1340. You can see here the first few cases around the years 1335 and so forth, reported Black Death cases, and then by 1347 it's in Florence, and 1348 it's in London. Truly remarkable spread of a global disease, not too dissimilar to today. Right. What I want you to do now, though, we need to learn a little bit more about this disease. You don't know a great deal about it. I want you to click on this YouTube link, which you can find on the PowerPoint in the Week 6 folder, and then start to take notes. So very straightforward part of the task is just to identify what the Black Death was, so key characteristics of it. So it was a disease, it was found in fleas. The fleas were what we call the vectors. They carried the disease, and the fleas lived inside small mammals, so rats, for instance. And so the rats were really the vehicle for transporting it around the world. They were burrowed in ships and followed humans around, and that's how it spread. The next bit would be how it spread, which I started to refer to just a moment ago. And then finally, why could no one stop it? I know that seems like an obvious thing today. They had no vaccine, but at the time they had many sort of approaches to trying to stem its flow, stop it from spreading even further. What were they? So you don't need to fill in every one of these rows, but just as many as you can. It should take you about 20 minutes. Okay, so pause the video, and when you're done, you can resume. Okay, on to the final big task of the lesson. What I want you to do, go into the folder. There is a document called the Black Death Source Table. there's space for 3 sources, and we're just going to be doing a bit of source work here. So the 5 W's, the who, what, where, why, and when. And you need to look at the sources in the PowerPoint and answer those questions. You don't have to write them in huge amounts of detail, but you do need to think about it carefully, particularly the why question, right? So, why did it spread? So what we're really looking at here is what can we learn about the causes of the Black Death? So why was the Black Death dominant in the world in the 1340s? What was the main reason the source gives for its spread? So source A, the plague carried by these cursed Italian ships was a punishment sent by God. Right? So what you need to do with that is put in a simple statement into the table saying it was spread because, as referred to here, it was spread because God was unhappy with the state of affairs. So many explanations for the causes of the Black Death in Europe and around the rest of the world was that this was a punishment sent by God. Okay, so apply that same approach to all the other sources, and once you've finished, you can move on to the final activity of the lesson. So pause, complete the table, and then let's move on to the plenary. So this is going to require a little bit of imagination from you all. I want you to imagine that you are a regular person, perhaps a merchant, perhaps an artisan, that would be a craftsman, someone who makes things with their hands. And you're living in 14th century Venice. Now, Venice was the place to be in Europe in the 14th century. It was rich, it was bustling, but it was very crowded, as you can imagine. Yeah? And this is the representation of Venice in the late 14th century. You can see there people literally crammed into these tiny avenues and these squares, packed onto these narrow bridges. Very, very easy for an airborne disease like the bubonic plague to spread, Black Death to spread quickly. So, a bit grim now. You're a person living in 14th century Venice. You've fallen seriously ill with the Black Death. You don't have high hopes of surviving. But in your final moments, as you take your last gasps of breath, you want to pass on a message to future generations about what caused the disease. Yeah? You might be, lying inside a little corner of a church, and all you have is a sharp implement, and you're scratching it into the walls. What are you going to write about the cause of the disease? What do you think caused it? Use the sources, use your own imagination to write 2 sentences explaining what you think caused the disease. And once you've finished all of that, put it into a single document, upload it to today's assignment. In fact, you have until Wednesday to submit. Good luck.